This is part 4 of chapter 24, and just want to summarize sympatric speciation. So, again, sympatric speciation is when we have the development of new species who live or have an overlap in their geographic location. And they have some other barrier, most likely a reproductive barrier that is causing them to go through speciation. Sympatric speciation requires the emergence of that barrier that isolates a subset of the population. And again, there's not going to be a geographic separation from the parent population. So, using examples of different organisms, plants, the most common mechanism that we're going to see sympatric speciation is through the hybridization between two different species or through errors in cell division, both of which lead to a polyploid individual. In animals, we're going to see sympatric speciation when a population is reproductively isolated, or they can also switch to a new habitat or to a new food source that causes them to be separated from another part of their population. And then there's also sexual selection or habitat, again, differentiation, which occurs when a subpopulation exploits a habitat or a resource not used by the parent population. So each of these are different ways we're going to end up with sympatric speciation. So now, one kind of gray area that we have in the development of new species is what we call a hybrid zone. And so a hybrid zone is a region where members of the different species mate and actually produce a hybrid. So this occurs when we have allopatric species, so two species that were developed through the geographic separation of their population. And then we have a renewed contact with these two species interacting with each other. And the hybrids that result from their mating may have viability, and it's going to actually depend on what happens with these hybrids to determine whether we have the development of a third new species, or we'll look at the different results that can occur in just a second. But basically, the hybrid zone is the region where the members of the different species meet and mate, producing their hybrid offspring. Most often, those hybrids do have reduced fitness compared to the parent species. And the distribution of the hybrid zones can be more complex if the parent species are found in patches within the same region. So what this looks like, this is a picture of the interaction between some toads in Europe. So we have these yellow-bellied toads and fire-bellied toads. And they once were one population, and then over time there was an allopatric speciation that occurred that developed these two different species of toad. And now there is a hybrid zone where they actually interact and they interbreed in this long, narrow hybrid zone. So what occurs now is this set of hybrids that are being produced in this zone right here. So when we have closely related species that meet in a hybrid zone, we have three possible outcomes. We can either have reinforcement of the reproductive barrier, and this is going to occur if the hybrids are not as fit as the two parent populations. So this is going to actually reinforce the two separate species that we have in the outside of these zones. Um, the second possibility is we could have a fusion of the two populations occurring within the hybrid zone. So this is going to occur if the hybrid is actually more fit than the two parent populations. We have gene flow occurring, which is merging the two species back together again. So in essence, we have the process of the original speciation being reversed. So we have the reuniting, essentially, of these two species into one. And then the third possibility is a stability stage or state where the hybrid zone becomes long term and becomes a stable population of just these hybrid organisms. So that leads us to the limitations of the biological species concept. We're talking about theories here, and we do have exceptions to the theories. We have things that don't quite get explained yet by these theories. And so, for example, we can't really take this biological species idea and apply it to fossils, or if we look at asexual organisms like all prokaryotes, because the biological species concept emphasizes the absence of gene flow. So, in order for there to be the development of two different species, this idea of speciation from a biological standpoint means that we have an interruption in gene flow through either all of the allopatric or the sympatric barriers that we've discussed. But in reality, there is gene flow that can occur between distinct species. For example, grizzly bears and polar bears can mate, and they produce what's called a growler bear. I'll show you the picture right here. It's kind of a funny looking bear there, but the hybrid growler bear is in really distinct contrast to these ideas that two species cannot interact and have gene flow, that there are reproductive barriers always. And we've looked at some of those different ideas. And we have trouble when we look at fossils, because when we're looking at fossils, all we can see are the morphologic differences or similarities. We really can't look at any sort of reproductive behavior or any other factors that may have influenced the gene flow between fossils. So the biologic species concept is based on this absence of gene flow, yet we know that it can occur. One of the questions that comes up is, does speciation happen gradually or quickly? And how long does it take? So there are different ideas. There's the idea of gradualism or the idea of punctuated equilibrium. And these are people that are in favor of the two different models that we can look at. So in gradualism, it's just like it would seem, that there's a gradual divergence over long spans of time, and that this theory assumes that there are no big changes that occur, but just an accumulation of many small ones, so that over time we end up with two distinct species. The punctuated equilibrium model states that the rate of speciation is not constant. There can be rapid bursts of change interspersed